we're summarizing,
So when you're summarizing,
we find that they feel queasy, or they're not fully able to just go hog wild, yes, let's do it.
so if there's a hesitation in your language, if they feel queasy and they can't quite commit emotionally to the ideas that you're summarizing, go ahead.
So maybe by that time we've done a future memory, or maybe we haven't. But if we already have, you talked earlier about finding the trade-offs that they're willing to make. Is that the time to do that?
No, the time is before the summary. So the question is, when is the time to make those trade-offs? You know, do you want this over that? By the time you come to that future memory, you describe that picture, it should all be totally clear, right? When you get to the summary, it should also in your mind be totally clear exactly what it is. So for example, let's say you made a trade-off of, let's go back to the employment example, and the trade-off was they'll trade off money for status. They want status more than money, and they're okay with having a lower income if they have a higher status, right? So then you might say to them, so let me just get this straight. You know, in your ideal job, you want to have independence, you want to have status, people looking up to you, and so on. You'd quite like the cash. Notice the words now. You would quite like the cash, but you'd rather have people respect and admire you. Is that correct? So, and if I had a sense that there might be a problem with this, I would get them to commit to the following. So what you're telling me is, you would rather have the status than the cash. So you'd be okay with a lower income, provided the status is high enough. Is that right? Do you see how I've actually increased the clarity in the separation and got them to commit to that? Do you get that? And I want that before I do my summary. So when I do my summary, it's just a question of literally saying, okay, so you want to have independence, you want to have status, you quite like the cash, but honestly, it's not that important to you. Because now they've already committed to that idea, and then this, that, and the other, right? And then I'll paint a picture. You know, I can see you a couple of months from now being the mayor of this town. You know, the money might not be great, but the way that people look at you, that's worth every moment of your time. You get to be your own boss, do what you want, and honestly, people, they'll invite you to functions because after all, you're the mayor. You deserve to be treated with respect, don't you? Do you see how we've done that? And I've even built into the future memory the idea that the cash is of unimportance to them now. So notice I've gone from, you want the cash, but you'd rather have status, to, the cash is less important, but status is very important, to, status is everything and cash really is not important. I have reassigned the values. I guess, reinstalled a different set of values at that point by removing the thing that we can't offer, which is the cash, but offering them what we can offer and what they do want, which is the status. Does that answer your question? Is this useful, guys? The way that this thinking goes? Can you see that this is a very different way of looking at the art of frame control and reframing than a traditional, well, look at it this way, right? There's a lot more power in what we're doing this way. Does that make sense? Go ahead.
I just want to make sure that I'm okay with this, or in my own head. I almost hear you giving a false dichotomy between one or the other. Are we looking at, you know, a broader, because it's not going to be just one or the other.
Well, if there's several things going, you're just going to create a hierarchy, and then the dichotomy comes from what can you actually deliver and what can't you.
Okay.
Right? If you can't deliver a high income and status, for example, but you can deliver on job satisfaction, like interesting job and social contact, then you need to create the dichotomy between social contact and interesting job and versus cash and status. Make
so
sense?
we are trying to drive to a dichotomy, one over the other.
Only if it's necessary. If there's no,
Okay.
if there's no conflict there, if you can offer them everything they've asked for, then there's no need, because you can give them everything they've asked for. The only
Okay.
reason for doing this is if you cannot deliver on some of the things that they think they want. And of course, by the way, you do recognize that for some people, the idea of cash and status will be more important than the interesting work and the social contact they make out of that, which means they're not the right people to be working for you. Make sense? Or the same with a car. If your cars are all Ferraris and they're looking for a safe family vehicle, they are not your ideal client. Your best bet is to say to them, you know what? Here's an address of someone who does exactly what you're looking for. They'll take care of you. Tell them I sent you. I would be wasting your time trying to sell you one of these cars because honestly, it doesn't do what you need it or want it to do. Now think about it this way. Who is more likely to just refer people to you to buy a car, especially if it's a Ferrari? The guy that bought a Ferrari and then he's standing in his shed and he's going like, what the hell did I buy this thing for? Or the guy that didn't buy the Ferrari from you, but went down the road to your recommendation and was perfectly happy with the station wagon, and now when his friends who are really wealthy are going around and say like, I really should get a car, talk to this guy here. He'll give you the coolest sports car ever. Who do you think is going to do that for you? Right? So honestly, if the values that they have, do you want to come up?
I was just going to say that in the other dealership too. When they say the Porsche guy sent me down here.
So he's saying about
the guy's going to go.
You'll have a deal with the other dealership, so that if you're sending people to someone else's business, they'll happily send people to you if they don't have the right thing. Because now we have one of the other Cialdini laws. It's called reciprocity. I do you a favor, you'll do me a favor. I did you a favor by not selling you the car that you don't want, and by telling you where you can get it. I did them a favor by sending them a client. What are they going to do? Well, they're going to send me a client back if they can't service that person. And what is that person going to do? They're going to send referrals to me because it's going to be good for them in terms of they'll not be referring to someone bad. Do you see how this becomes a win-win all around when you look beyond the initial transaction? Right? Does that make sense, you guys? Easy, useful stuff? So let's spend another, you don't really need that long, but let's spend another 10 minutes doing this. Get it back in the same group with the same person. If you need to sort of restart a little bit of the values elicitation, that's fine. If you want to do a little bit of fine-tuning in terms of the contrasting the different values to find out which ones you can drop, that's fine too. But really what you're aiming to get towards is a very clear acknowledgement of here are the values in a row, that's what you want in a car. Is that right? You want a clear, committed yes. If there's any hesitation, if there's any pauses, if there's any tension, if there's any lack of movement suddenly, in other words, there's a shift that does not describe someone who's getting enthusiastic and animated by something, then you need to go back and find out about what that is. Right? If, assuming everything is good, once they've acknowledged and accepted that little summary you've given them with all the emotions and they've lit up appropriately, you will create that future memory where they have all this linked to the car, and you can leave it at that. We'll talk tomorrow more about creating the whole final closing process and so on. Honestly, you're at 90-95% of the way there at this point. Is that easy to do? Off you go.